Hello and welcome to what I'm hoping to be the first episode of Just Another Sports podcast by myself, Sean Cutler. Too much. So hopefully this helps appease that, and mainly looking to talk about the Yankees in the MLB, and then if I get to some other topics, preferably Iowa football and basketball. Big Hawk fan here, and then other than that, maybe some NAIA baseball for you. Main focus on Briar Cliff, which is my alma mater, and I tried to play baseball for a few years there. Wasn't very successful at it. But let's just dive right in here. So, of course, right now it's the off season in the MLB. It's kind of a not a really painfully a slow start, but of course I think everybody's just kind of waiting to see what Judge gets paid. Of course, the reigning AL MVP and New York Yankee legend, maybe not legend quite yet, but obviously probably secured himself a spot in Monument Park with this past season. Could command, well, what I've been hearing, there is a report out there, who knows how real it is or not, but $337 million, nobody knows the years on that or what, but $337 million could be anywhere from 7 to 10 years, I would assume, which means the annual average value of that contract is pretty much anywhere from $33.7 million a year to 45 or something like that. So he's going to get a boatload of money, whether he stays with the Yankees and or if he goes out west to San Francisco, his kind of hometown team. He grew up watching Barry Bonds, smash records there. But he of course, for a while there just trying to be taking a step back and kind of analyzing the situation like any other couch GM or couch coach does. Honestly, I'm a little nervous if we sign him to such a monster contract, and what if his body starts failing him? I mean, he's 6'7", 280 pounds. That body isn't necessarily built to. Who knows if that body's built to last? Given the fact he's already had some injury issues in his career, nothing major, which is good, like no knee surgeries or elbow surgeries or anything super major like that. But when you're that massive of a human being, obviously your muscles are longer, so you're more likely to have those hamstring, quad, lat injuries. I mean, Stanton's had his share of them too. So obviously that all those doubts creep into your head. But I saw just a video of his season highlights, just like a minute-long clip, and just the feeling that I got from watching that video, and the pride, and then that all reminded me of watching him all season long, and just the excitement and that I got from his beautiful swing, his wonderful at-bats he took, his stellar defense, all of that, or him, just simply swiping a second base 16 times this year. He might have swiped third once, I don't know for sure, but he had 16 stolen bases, that big dude did. And just for him to be that monstrous of a human being and be that skilled at every facet of the game, he's worth every penny. And not to mention, I mean, the kind of money he makes the Yankees off the field, like jersey sales, ticket sales, the impact he has on, the Bronx and New York City as a humanitarian as well. He just launched his big charity, something that sort. And he's in pinstripes, and the logo's Yankee colors too, so that has to be promising. Doesn't mean everything, but he had a big old launch of that in that event the other night. A lot of big athletes were there to help support him in that cause. So, but obviously, I want Judge back, and I think pretty much all free agents, all big time free agents, because once again, this is a very deep, very good free agent class. I think they're all just kind of waiting to see what Judge ends up with. Same thing, like the shortstops are all waiting to see who's the first shortstop to sign and what do they get. So I think they're all probably going to wait to see what Judge gets, and then they're gonna, them and their agent are going to sit down and talk. What should we get? Like the Turners and the Correas and Swanson and Bogarts, the 4 big shortstops in the market. So that would be really interesting. And it sounds from everything I pay attention to, all the Twitter GMs and the podcasts I listen to. It sounds like the reports, out of Judge's camp and perhaps the Yankees org, is that he's not looking to make this a long process. He did fly into San Francisco either yesterday or today to meet with the Giants. So we'll see. And maybe he meets with, while he's on the West Coast, maybe he'll meet with the Dodgers out there. I mean, he's earned the right to do that. So he's going to check and see and evaluate all his options and decide what's best for him and his family moving forward. So that'll be, but obviously as a Yankee fan, you just want to see him sign as soon as possible somewhere. Obviously you want it to be the Yankees, and if not, you just want to see him sign, so it's not a process where he ends up signing in February, and by the time he signs, we've either, like, when you're putting that much money and that length of contract onto someone, and you're waiting for that, it's hard to make other decisions, like sign other players and this and that. So obviously I think the market will really start heating up once Judge signs, because I think all the major players in free agency are kind of waiting and seeing what happens there. And then obviously I think it'll take off from there once, Judge kind of sets the market as the best player on it. So then kind of the other moves we saw happen so far. Major moves, I think, so far in free agency. Tyler Anderson, left-hand pitcher for the Dodgers last year. He's also pitched for the Mariners, the Pirates, and the Phillies in his career. He signed a 3-year, $39 million deal with the Angels. I mean, good for them. They need pitching, but they need to make another splash too if they're looking to contend. And they haven't been known to either maximize pitchers there or have a bounce back, so I don't put a lot of stock into that. Of course, Rizzo coming back to the Yankees is huge, because I really thought Rizzo was going to wait and see where Judge signs and then he would follow, but I think this just proves he really wants to be in New York, and that's awesome. Hopefully that means Judge is coming back too. Nick Martinez returned to San Diego. A guy who was pitching overseas for a while, came back, pitched for the Padres last year, had a decent season. He re-ups with them. A big couple trades happened. The biggest one, obviously, is Seattle going to get a big, powerful right-handed bat in Teoscar Hernandez. As the Blue Jays are looking to shed a little bit of salary and then also get more left-handed in their lineup, more balance. It's cool to me. I mean, Teoscar is one of the guys on the Blue Jays who really hurts the Yankees quite a bit. So, but I mean, that's big for the Mariners. That's huge because Mitch Haniger is a free agent for them. Jared Kelenic, they're one of their top prospects in the recent years, hasn't panned out yet. So big trade for Seattle. And then Toronto, though, they get Eric Swanson, a former Yankee prospect, was in the James Paxton trade a few years ago to Seattle, and he was really good last year. He had like a sub-2 ERA for Seattle. And then they also get a prospect, Adam Mako, who I guess didn't start pitching till he was like 16 or 17 and has just kind of taken off. Like, he's been rifling through the minor leagues real quick. So he could potentially be, a contributor late this next season or maybe 2024 for him. A left-hand pitcher. So that'll be interesting to see how he pans out. The other two trades, Seattle got Cooper, just a straight-up one-for-one flop here. Seattle gets Cooper Hummel. He's a catcher slash left fielder slash pinch hitter or whatever. Not a lot of at-bats last year. Not a lot of games played at a 580 OPS. And then Arizona got Kyle Lewis, which is the interesting part of this trade. Kyle Lewis had 529 OPS last year. Just clearing up a roster spot there is Seattle in the outfield. I'm assuming they're looking to add more guys in the outfield. Obviously, you have Teoscar Hernandez, Julio Rodriguez are in there right now, and then Kelenic's probably their left fielder, so they're probably looking to upgrade in left field. But they trade Kyle Lewis. He came onto the scene in 2019. Was I think the number 8 draft pick in like the 2016 or 17 draft for the Mariners, and he came up and I think he was a September call up in 2019, posted like a 860 OPS, hit 6 home runs, looked pretty good at the plate, and then in the COVID shortened season 2020 he won Rookie of the Year. So that's obviously pretty interesting, and he was one of their main sources of offense that year, but then since then injuries have just plagued him. And like when they were visiting the Yankees this year, I was listening, Michael Kay was talking about how he was, I guess, like his knees aren't so much, but like he can't play more than like 2 days in a row in the outfield because his knees are in so much pain, or back, something like that. But it was something wild like that to me. I'm like, man, and he's so young and obviously is a talented bat, and so obviously probably projects as a DH moving forward. So obviously the universal DH that was created last 3 seasons, and that's good for him because that's probably what he profiles as in the long run. And I think it's a good move for Arizona. And I don't really know much about Cooper Hummel, but Jerry Dipoto, the GM for the Mariners, is pretty good at making. He makes a lot of trades. So clearly they saw either this is just a dump of Kyle Lewis, or maybe they see something Cooper Hummel not everybody else sees. And then the other trade, the Mets got pitchers Eliezer Hernandez and Jeff Brigham from Miami for some prospects. Eliezer Hernandez was part of the rotation a couple years ago, but he wasn't like a mainstay. He's got some okay stuff. I actually had him as a candidate to get traded this offseason as well. The Marlins have plenty of young pitching depth, and he just didn't really fit into that. So the Mets get a guy with some experience in the majors, probably similar to the Yamamoto trade a few years ago. The Marlins had a young pitcher, Jordan Yamamoto, and traded him to the Mets. That didn't pan out for the Mets, but Eliezer Hernandez, you never know. He doesn't have like A+ upper 90 stuff. And then Jeff Brigham, he's a I believe he is. I saw it the other day, and now I'm blanking. But a reliever. He's a reliever, so kind of just a trade. I think to help soften the blow more than anything, if they lose some of the pitchers who are slated for free agency. If you're the Mets, like they have DeGrom, and Taijuan Walker and Chris Bassett are all hitting free agency. And really, I mean, Jeff Brigham, 3.38 ERA last year. He's a reliever. 24 innings, but overall 79 career innings, 4.52 ERA. Looks like a decent bullpen arm. And they always need bullpen help. They have a couple of bullpen arms on who are hitting the market too. Adam Ottavino, off the top of my head, is one I remember. And then so then the two moves that were made yesterday, or maybe the day before. IKF back with the Yankees on a 1-year, $6 million deal. This doesn't necessarily mean he's back with the Yankees, but there are some reports. Jack Curry said that he thinks IKF's going to be their starting shortstop 2023, and Jack Curry is a pretty trusted source, and I really hope that is just false, absolutely false. I don't know how you could. I mean, when the game was on the line, Aaron Boone made the decision to bench IKF in the playoffs, and I just can't imagine they would run him back out at shortstop when Oswald Peraza showed very capable of being a shortstop, and the fact that there's 4 elite shortstops on the market. I'm not saying we're going to sign one, but to ignore those and then to run it back with IKF would be absolutely insane. Literally a definition of insanity if they did that. And IKF's a nice player. I don't hate IKF's game. He doesn't hit for power, but he's a slappy contact hitter. He doesn't strike out very much. He was 22 for 26 on the base pass. Like, he's a good base runner too. And he's an all-right defender. He can't, but not at shortstop. You got to have him at third base. He won a Gold Glove at third base. His defensive numbers are not good at shortstop with the Rangers or the Yankees. His defensive runs saved are decent. Like, it was 10 defensive runs saved, which is above average for sure. But that's because he can make plays to his right and to his left. He cannot make. He's graded out as one of the worst defenders in the league, coming straight at the balls hit straight at him. He booted so many of those. I just can't imagine they would ever think of having him as their starting shortstop. If he starts at third base, okay, so be it. Next year, I would like to see what he would do at third base, because he does bring more value, I think, overall than Josh Donaldson does, even though Donaldson's defense at third base is elite. But we'll get to him in a little bit. And then the other kind of interesting move that happened, LA non-tendered. The Dodgers non-tendered Cody Bellinger, the 2019 NL MVP. He was, that's not right, 2019? Well, he was 2017 Rookie of the Year. Let me see. I think it was 2019, yeah. MVP in, 2019. And he was a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger All-Star in 2019. A phenomenal season, 1.035 OPS. Led the league in total bases, intentional walks. He had 47 bombs, 34 doubles. He stole 15 bags. I mean, just incredible season in 2019. But then, 2020, he had an okay COVID-shortened season. Wasn't great. Wasn't terrible. And then in 2021, he only played 95 games due to injury, and he batted 165 and had a 542 OPS. And then this past season, he played in 144 games and had a 210 batting average, 265 on base, a 389 slugging. Good for a 654 OPS and an OPS plus of 78, which, by the way, is 6 points lower than IKF, the aforementioned IKF. And I don't know if I've actually said his full name yet, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. He actually had 6 points less than Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. As far as OPS plus, which is adjusted for the ballparks they play in. So he's a free agent now. Completely free agent. Ready and looking to sign with a team. And, there's some, I said potential fits off the top of my head were the Yankees, the Phillies, the White Sox, and I did see he is linked to the Blue Jays, which also makes sense as they're looking for left-handed bats. And if they really believe they can try to capture something in him that was whatever got lost over the course of that COVID year, or from 2020 to 2021, obviously this would be a reclamation project. I just don't know what he's going to get paid, and I'm sure it's going to, but he does have Scott Boras as his agent, and Scott Boras is known for getting the most money to his players, and he says there should be a bidding war if teams are offering 1-year deals. It could be 20-some million, which I wouldn't pay him that much. I don't think it'd be terrible. Like, if the price tag wasn't too terrible, a 1 year with like a club or a player option to Bellinger wouldn't be bad. If it was the Yankees, a left-handed bat, he's a really good defender still. Like, still a really good defender. He runs the bases pretty well. But with the short porch in Yankee Stadium, and without the shift, that seems like a perfect place for him. And then Philly, with his good defense, he can go to center field. Marsh can go to left, and of course then you can kind of switch between in right field for Castellanos. Schwarber can play into left, of course, too, and first base. And if they decide to trade Rhys Hoskins or something, you just put Schwarber at first base, and then of course you got Harper DH/right field too. But Bellinger kind of could make sense to the Phillies in my mind, and then the White Sox, they're looking for more left-handed bats, and they could really use another outfielder too. Obviously, you're good to run it back with Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert. They've had their injury issues, but they're immensely talented. But yeah, they could really use another outfielder, especially another left-handed bat to join that lineup. And then Toronto, as we said before, looking for left-handed bats and another outfielder after trading Teoscar Hernandez. So, with them trading Teoscar Hernandez and then a couple of days later, Bellinger just getting non-tendered and potentially falling right into their laps, that trade could make even more sense. Especially if Bellinger, can somehow reclaim the kind of offensive profile he was able to showcase from 2017 to 2019. So that was kind of the general overview of the offseason so far. Then we can just dive a little bit deeper here into the Yankees offseason. They did claim Junior Fernandez off waivers. Junior Fernandez was in the Cardinals organization, then most recently with the Pirates. He had 16 innings pitched in 2022. What I see him as, he is a potential bullpen piece maybe, or maybe a potential trade piece, because he does have that upper 90s sinker that Yankees pitching coach Matt Blake loves his guys who have those upper 90s sinker. Clay Holmes, Michael King turned his two-seamer kind of into a sinker. I don't know exactly what Michael King calls it himself, but I know his two-seamer kind of went from running, like a normal to like a lot of horizontal run to more of a fade in my eyes. It looks more like a sinker now. That's just my opinion watching on TV. So, but a 44% whiff rate on his slider, Junior Fernandez. So that's interesting. Like, it's really good if they can improve that sinker, lower that hit rate on the sinker somehow, and then obviously he's got a pretty decent slider. So who knows? It might be nothing. He might end up being cut, before the season starts. He might end up being on our spring training and then sent to AAA or DFA or whatever. But you never know. Could be another like under the radar move they made and to really help the bullpen out. And then, of course, kind of the other news is Judge is meeting with the Giants. And then I just would like to kind of scour over my off-season plans for the Yankees, and then we can kind of wrap this bad boy up. I think number one, obviously, is re-sign Judge. And obviously, that's objective number one for the Yankees front office. They've made it clear they won't be outbid. And of course, there is an offer on the table for Judge, rumored at $337 million. Who knows if that's true or not? It might be more, might be less. Probably more by the end of the process. And then I said number two. Of course, these probably shouldn't be in any sort of order, but after Judge signing, I say you trade in a package. This is all in the same package for Miami's Pablo Lopez. We almost traded for him at the deadline, and then the Marlins backed out at the last second. I don't necessarily blame them for backing out. But it did kind of force the Yankees. I think the Yankees thought that deal was going to get done. And then they traded Jordan Montgomery because they thought they were going to get Pablo Lopez at the 11th hour for Harrison Bader, which that trade did kind of work out in the long run for the Yankees. But at first it didn't look too great because the first month with the Cardinals, Jordan Montgomery was just tearing it up. And then Marlins backed out at the last second. That trade fell through. But I think we should go right back there and try it again. I say Hicks, get rid of his salary, and then Gleyber Torres, and then one more prospect. And I don't know this. I'm never good at predicting prospects in trades. I always kind of maybe overvalue prospects or undervalue them one way or another. I said we could go, because for whatever reason we weren't able to get this trade done, and it did involve Hicks and Torres for Pablo Lopez. And I'm fine with doing that again. I think if you trade Torres, it frees up second base for DJ LeMahieu, and I think second base, maybe settling into second base, might be better for DJ's health in the long run as compared to him moving around the field first, second, third base all the time. Or maybe it opens second base for Anthony Volpe, and then LeMahieu can just settle into third. I don't know, but I think trading Torres also helps lessen the amount of money we would pay Hicks to play for another team. Because the chances are, I don't know if we can get another team on board to take on his $10 million salary for the production he gives you for 3 more years. Right, so I'm saying Torres, and then maybe if we throw in a good prospect there, maybe we can match that value of Pablo Lopez and perhaps not have to pay Hicks' salary for the next 3 years and shed, not only what Gleyber Torres will make in arbitration, but also shed Hicks' salary. So I'm saying just some prospects that can potentially go in there. Austin Wells, left-handed bat. He's in Double A right now. He's a catcher, probably in the long run profiles as a first base slash DH, or maybe like a corner outfielder, because he's actually a decent athlete. But he's not well regarded for his defense at catcher. But he projects as a quality left-handed bat. He was definitely one of the better bats in the Yankees minor league system. I think that'd be good because he could be in the majors by 2024 and helping out in Miami's lineup, who desperately need better bats, and that's why Gleyber Torres fits perfectly in there, and you can slide Chisholm over to third or shortstop or whatever they see fit for that, and you get Torres for 2 years, and who is a top 10 second baseman in the MLB. I will say that. It's just a conundrum of what Gleyber Torres are you getting? Are you getting the guy who in 2018-2019 averaged 31 homers, 84 RBI, and 849 OPS? Or are you getting the guy who in 2021, mind you, 2020 was the COVID season, but he averaged 6 homers, 34 RBI, and 703 OPS. But then he bounced back this year with an inconsistent season. But had a couple really good months in there, a couple really bad months. He finished with 24 homers, 76 RBI, 761 OPS. But those numbers right there, boilerplate, gives you a top 10 second baseman in the MLB. And then Pablo Lopez, really good changeup, mid-90s fastball, good command. Would be a really good number 4 starter. Really solid number 3 starter, really good number 4 starter. And I mean, to start last season, he was ridiculously good. He had an ERA under 2 about midway through May. So, and then just some other prospects who can maybe fit in there instead of Wells. Everson Pereira, he's close to the MLB. He's more potential though than floor. I think Wells has a really nice floor about him, I think. And then Trey Sweeney is our first round pick in 2020. Yeah, 2020, I believe. A left-handed hitting shortstop who probably profiles as a third base or second baseman long term, but a nice bat right there. He's already in Double A. And then Oswald Peraza. But I think if Peraza is involved in the trade, we either get a better pitcher from them, or we maybe get a reliever from him as well, or we'd get more than just Pablo Lopez if Peraza was involved in this trade. That's just a guy I kind of threw in as potentially move. I really like Peraza, I do, and I think him and Volpe in the middle infield, whether Peraza's at short or second or Volpe's at short or second in the future, would be really cool if they're both really good. And Peraza showed that, I mean, the hype is real for him. Obviously, we don't know what will happen over the course of this offseason to determine who our shortstop will be for 2023. And then the next move, I said sign to or trade for 2 relievers. Just some nice, free agent arms out there. Chris Martin, Andrew Chafin, Taylor Rogers, Tommy Kahnle, Hansel Robles, Jake McGee. There's just a few of them that I think the price tag wouldn't be too bad at all. Rogers and Chafin are and McGee are lefties. Chris Martin, Tommy Kahnle, Hansel Robles have some really good power stuff. Kahnle, of course, had pitched for the Yankees already. We released him in 2020, I believe, and then he was out for a while with Tommy John. But he came back, pitched, I think, like 15 to 20 innings this year. Had really nice numbers, so you never know. That'd be a cool reunion. I'd love to have him back. And then Jake McGee, power lefty. Chafin, last few years has been really effective as a left-hand reliever for the A's and the Tigers. And I believe he was on the Phillies at the end of last season, or 2021, I should say. And Taylor Rogers, he pitched for the Padres and Brewers this year. Started the year with the Padres. He was involved in the Chris Paddock trade before the season. The Twins traded Taylor Rogers for Chris Paddock. There was more people in that trade, but those were the two main pieces. And then the Padres used Rogers in the trade for Josh Hader this offseason. Or this at the trade deadline. My bad. But I think adding bullpen depth can't hurt at all. So, if our bullpen was at full strength, the chance that your bullpen that starts the year, which was electric for the Yankees for about 2 months before Green got hurt, and then King was the big one. Gosh. Well, and Green, of course, too, with his playoff experience. King got hurt. Efros eventually got hurt, who we acquired via trade, and he's had Tommy John, so he's going to be out probably for the entire season next year. I think getting two bullpen arms. I think the talent we have in our bullpen currently, with Holmes, King, Loizaga, not Canely, Peralta, Marinaccio, Trevino is good. I don't think that's bad, but I think adding two guys, Chafin and Rogers off the cuff. That'd be two more lefties or one of those two would just be good in general because they had really good stuff. And then next, I think, still got to address that last outfield spot. You sign Judge, now you have Judge and Bader in the outfield. And you trade Hicks, you need another outfielder. I'd love to re-sign Benny. I think that's a great option. I hope that's the direction they go in, but, maybe Bellinger. Maybe Bellinger is a guy we take a flyer on. I wouldn't love that because the offense, we have a lot of swing and miss in our lineup, and Benintendi just fits better. But if Benintendi's price tag gets, post the Judge signing, maybe Benintendi's price tag, maybe team's getting a bidding war on Benintendi, he ends up making $20 million a year, and we don't want him. Who knows? But Bellinger might be an option. And then I say, why not trade or sign another starter? Look how deep the starting pitching market is. Obviously, Jameson Taillon, we can always bring him back. These guys' price tag will be between $15 and $25 million, I believe. I'm not, an expert on that, but Jameson Taillon, Nathan Eovaldi, Kodai Senga, the Japanese star coming over as a free agent this year to the MLB. Sorry about that. Blanked. And then also Yoshida, outfielder, stud outfielder in Japan, also might be coming over and posting as a free agent in the MLB. Senga, Carlos Rodon is a long shot just because, we have pieces. He's going to get paid close to $30 million a year, I believe, and maybe even more if teams getting a bidding war over him. Wade Miley might be a good one for a year, back into the rotation. He's kind of got the same kind of makeup as Nestor Cortez, who of course has been revelation for the Yankees the last 2 years with Matt Blake's tutelage and of course his own hard work as well. But Wade Miley could be a nice little addition. Taijuan Walker and Chris Bassett. It'd be nice to sign one of those two just because, they're Mets and just signing away from the Mets be cool. Chris Bassett has had back-to-back really nice seasons now with the A's and then the Mets. Taijuan Walker had a nice season with the Mets last year. Injury concerns come along with him. But, the more starting pitchers, like say we have Pablo Lopez already, the more starting pitchers you stack up, the less you have to worry about injuries. And then, of course, Jacob deGrom, Justin Verlander are out there with massive price tags coming with them. And then Jose Quintana be another nice little addition maybe. He had a really nice bounce back year last year after like 3 or 4 years of being pretty mediocre. But he was terrific last year with the Pirates and the Cardinals, so he'd be another option. And then, of course, just exploring a Donaldson trade, whether we trade him and have to pay most of his salary next year for him to be on another team, or we attach a prospect or two and if we attach a 2B level prospects and get a C prospect in return and pay like half his salary. I think we really need to try and do that because I don't think he fits on next year's roster. I think with the young kids coming up, Cabrera, Oswaldo Cabrera, Oswald Peraza, Anthony Volpe coming up next year, I think we need to get him out of there. He's an elite defender, so he holds some value, and he was a slightly below league average hitter last year. But when he's making $25 million, it is kind of hard to move a 38-year-old making $25 million who's a below average league hitter. So luckily he does have the elite defense, and maybe wouldn't be surprised if they just run it back with him for a couple months and then either cut him or try to trade him, like they did with Gallo. And somehow they got a actually decent prospect back for Gallo. Still blows my mind there. And then some other pieces maybe we could trade. Domingo Germán, Kyle Higashioka, and Clark Schmidt. I think Schmidt has to be traded. I don't think there is any way. Yes, he can contend for a spot next year, but he's already shown he can kind of be a decent piece in a bullpen in the majors. So I don't know. I think he's going to get traded one way or another, especially if we make the moves necessary to improve our starting rotation. I think that ends up pushing him out because I think we have better bullpen arms than him who will be on the squad next year. And then it's the same case with Domingo Germán. And Germán, little late second half surge when he had we had some injuries in the rotation. He came in. He actually did pretty well, so he kind of boosted his trade value a bit. And then Kyle Higashioka, really solid defensive catcher who can get hot at the plate. He's not going to be an elite offensive catcher. He's not even going to be a good offensive catcher, but he's definitely not the worst offensive catcher in the league. And with his solid defense, you take what you can get. I also want to be mad if we brought him back as our backup catcher next year. Did Trevino, that'd be fine. Just something potentially you might be able to get some value or tag on to a Hicks or a Donaldson trade to lessen the financial responsibility you have to those moving forward. I think maybe some other starters you could potentially trade for. I think Milwaukee's a good place to start. I think with Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, I think they got 2 more years of control left. It'd be a hefty price tag, and I think that's why maybe Clark Schmidt, Oswald Peraza end up getting traded in one of those trades. But if you had the opportunity to add a Woodruff or a Burns or an Eric Lauer from the Brewers, that could make a championship worthy rotation if you had already gotten Pablo Lopez. It'd make it right-handed heavy if you got Burns or Woodruff, but when your right-handers are Severino, Cole, Lopez, and Woodruff or Burns, that's something would be really special. And then you still have Frankie Montas next year, and who knows, maybe he gets added into a trade this offseason or at the deadline next year. Who knows what happens with Montas? Maybe he bounces back and shows us that number 2 starter ability he showed with the Athletics in his career. So anyway, I wrote together a potential lineup and starting rotation and bullpen. I'm not going to go over that with any of you listeners though, just because not enough has happened yet in the postseason. Judge isn't even back yet, so I'm at least wait till Judge is back to start, and maybe some other moves happen in the landscape in the MLB before I start sharing lineup ideas. I usually come up with one, every week. So That's actually going to be it for me. I am looking to cover other topics. Maybe do a 2 episode or 2 podcasts a week thing on, one podcast covers the Yankees, and maybe one podcast specifically covers baseball, Yankees, and I didn't talk about the Briarcliff Chargers today, but I plan to do that eventually. And then another podcast talks about college sports, between Iowa and Iowa State with their basketball and football teams. So, but thanks for listening, and I hope I can push some more of these podcasts out, and thank you. See you next time.